Hey guys, Josh here. Welcome to interview number 3 of my series, Scaling Your Divi Web Design Business. In this chat, I got to talk with Andrew Tuzson of Evil Empire. That's E-V-O-L, not evil. They're out of Nebraska, and Andrew's awesome, or Drew as I call him. They have built, within a couple years, a business that at the time of recording the interview was already scaling up to 25 team members, and they're growing rapidly. So we had an incredible chat. Andrew is an entrepreneur through and through, so it's kind of intimidating, to be honest, for somebody like me who's just taken that next level, but he is a really good role model to follow as far as, what to look for if you really want to grow a true web design agency and get to those higher numbers of team members. Now, they do Divi website design, but they also do advertising, SEO, and a lot of other services that come into play. And we talk about that, but more importantly, we talk about their systems, their tools, their processes, and how they manage that many people and stay sane, and how he's freed up to do what he loves to do. So we had an awesome talk. I think you guys are going to love this, and you'll definitely have to let me know how this helps your business. Drew, thanks for taking some time to chat with us today, man.
This is great, Josh. I really appreciate you reaching out to me. Anytime I get the chance to riff on business or dev or design, I mean, it's my passion, man. That's what I'm wired up to do. It's what I love to do. So anytime someone reaches out and says, we want to talk to you about this stuff, it's awesome. So awesome. Thank you for thinking of me, man. It's cool.
Absolutely, man. I saw your Divi Nation interview. I think it was, well, now we're into 2018, but earlier 2017. Yeah. I hadn't heard of you before. I checked out your site, and I can tell that you guys have perhaps the most efficient and creative and just well-oiled machine, at least it looks like on the outside of a web development company, an agency. Yeah. So before we dive into some questions and more detail about scaling and growing your business, why don't you just give us an overview of what your business is right now and then how big your team is?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for that compliment. It has been a labor of love to get where we are, man. This is the second agency that I've founded and been involved with from the ground up. Evil Empire was founded in May of 2015 here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Me, Andrew Tuzson, my name is predominantly associated with web design, development, UI, UX. But that's not exactly what Evil has become. Right out of the gate, Davey Owens, who's my CMO, when we were really doing a lot of planning and positioning in the marketplace and figuring out, who are we, what are we going to be doing? Because we knew it was going to be similar to my previous agency, but also very different. We initially thought that web development was going to be the beacon, the primary service and offering that we did as an agency. And interestingly, it's not. It makes up about 30% of our book. It's a great way for us to show immediate value. I mean, it's a very tangible thing, developing a site. But because we listen to the marketplace, the majority of our book of business is advertising. So I mean, they're all very complementary services. I mean, they all work very well together. We can run someone's soup to nuts through our entire gamut or menu, and it works great. We can also piecemeal it. So kind of an overview of how that's broken up. Our team right now, we have 20 full-time employees, and we have 5 more starting. I think next Monday is the 8th, where we have a class starting. It's the first time we ever hiring to a class, which is cool. So we got 5. Stars in their eyes, bright, ambitious entrepreneurs coming in. It'll be cool. I'm excited to run them through the gamut and grill them a little bit. It's always fun. Well,
a 25% increase too in your employees. That's pretty awesome, man.
Also, 25% increase in payroll.
Oh yeah, well we'll talk about that too. Yeah.
Our basic outline in terms of what we do. Right, we handle everything from branding, which originally was just we'll make logos for you, and there's so much strategy that goes into that now. Yes. Positioning, brand style guide. I mean, you name it, it's a part of that. Web design, web development, e-commerce, but now we're also doing a lot more with full stack development. So we've done stuff all the way up to building sites for the Department of Education, building sites for banks, doing custom full stack development with some pretty high level functionality. And that's been a really cool part of 2017.
Real quick on that, are a lot of those clients local there, or are you working with people nationwide or across the globe?
All over the globe, honestly.
Okay.
It's cool. You get one by accident, right? Or you accidentally get put into an RFP. You win one, and then it snowballs into another one, right? Let's say your POC is Jacqueline at this bank or whatever, and you crush. Jacqueline's going to talk to Todd over at, you know what I mean? Like
right.
It's just networking and it's just snowballs. So like a lot of them have just been, I hate the word luck, but like, man, we've gotten lucky. We've also worked our asses off, and I know our work speaks for itself. Like I don't ever want that to sound like an ego thing, but like I'm super proud of what comes out of this agency.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a whole different mindset with luck. I think you might have a lucky break, but it's up to you to get that next one. I think that's where you get a lot of one and done people. And in the music world, you get a lot of 15 seconds of fame because you might have one hit song and then you just produce crap. But you guys have obviously been efficient and been consistent, more importantly, and it sounds like that's really paid off. And what, 2 years, 2.5 since you started Evil? Is that right?
2 years in May. Yeah, 2 years in May. Yeah, 2 years in May. We try to consistently not produce crap.
Wow,
that's our new
awesome.
tagline, I guess. Just in today's conversation.
Yeah.
No, so I mean, well said. Really, that's spot on. So anyway, back to the deliverable. So that's like we stopped at the web development side of things. We have a full-size videography team that there's 2 people there, and they are honestly one of the most buried departments that we have. They are kept insanely busy. We also have everything from SEO, SEM, to content marketing, social media content marketing, social media advertising, automation marketing, direct campaigns, go-to-market strategies for our clients that are looking to expand into new markets, and they want to figure out like how do we penetrate this market where we have no positioning whatsoever. So I guess like the way that you could sum up who we are, what the hell we do is like we make incredible shit for our clients and then we evangelize the hell out of it for them or with them.
Gotcha.
Now, like I said, like our clients don't have to go across the entire arc for our processes to work. Obviously it helps, but we do a lot of piecemeal stuff where someone will come to us, hey, I just dropped 30K on a website last year, not ready to open that can of worms again, but the immediate opportunity is some PPC work or some social targeting or whatever.
So your clients now, before I ask you about your ideal clientele now, I guess, let me ask you, when you started the business, did you have all these services in place or did it just kind of escalate? Did you do just web design and then it's extended into branding and SEO and stuff like that?
That's a great question. Out of the gate, we offered web development, we offered on-page SEO, and we offered social media content creation, and that was it.
Okay.
One thing that I'm very proud of our team, more specifically my CMO, is he is a damn good listener. He is very attentive to what's happening in the market. He's very attentive to our clients' needs, and he's very skilled at identifying a pocket or a gap. Right. So when he first brought like automation marketing to the table, there was like months of research behind it. So then when it hit my desk, it was like, listen, this is a very, very, big piece that we're missing. This is exactly how we got into the PR game too. Like there's a big piece of our equation missing here. This is why it makes sense. This is how we're going to test it. This is how much money it's going to cost. And then ultimately it's just, okay, go. So I do have to give him, as Divi owns, I do have to give him, much love, much respect. Same with my director of new business, Natalie McCauley. Both of those are very skilled at listening, which is key.
So, and that's interesting too, because from what you said in the beginning, what you started out as far as your bulk of services, those are kind of your lower percentage of what you do now, right? I mean, you're doing stuff, it sounds like about maybe 75% of your business is stuff that you didn't even do when you started, and that's what's paying the bills more now?
It's what's paying the bills, and it's funny. It's always cyclical, man. Like when we spun, we grew so fast, and we continue to go through these growth spurts, and we joke, and we say our knees hurt like hell. But that first big wave of pushing and selling, we moved so much social media content creation, not necessarily content marketing, not necessarily targeted ads, just like actual creation. And there were a lot of problems with that. It's still something we do. It's still something we offer. It's still something we have legacy clients that we're doing it for. But we're moving it at such a smaller volume by itself than we used to. Now it's a much nicer like complementary service that we pair with another service based on need and scope. So it's been really neat to watch it evolve and like watch just the thought process. My team, everybody thinks so differently now too. It's like, I think the best analogy I can come up with right now would be like that sophomore album, right? Like your favorite band, They drop that freshman album, it's pretty good. And then that sophomore album, you're like, oh man, I can tell that they had a good producer. Like, these boys were on the road for a minute. You know what I mean? Like, they've got that Road Warrior sound to them. And I feel like that's where we're at right now. And with the plans and the meetings that we've had as a leadership team over the last 2 months, I'm excited for 18 because that's going to be more like our junior album. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Stadium rock type stuff.
So it sounds like you're approaching it kind of from like an annual perspective, right? As far as totally. So when you started, how big was your team initially? Like when you started? Just you.
Just me. And then my CMO was working remotely from Seattle part-time. So he was working at Amazon full-time. And then he'd get home and he'd log like 2 hours on Evil stuff, sometimes way more than that. And then I was doing everything initially. I was at a shared workspace at a desk, and I was just grinding it out to where I was doing all the prospecting, I was doing all of the pitching and selling, I was doing all the closing. Then I'd go build the stuff, right? And so very quickly we started. I mean, we made a lot of noise and we got a lot of attention. So very quickly we started growing. And so initially we hired 3 people right out of the gate, and then we went from.
And where did they come from? Those 3 people, are they local? Did you find them in the Divi Facebook groups, online? Like how did those come about?
Yeah, the first wave was local. We've done quite a bit of relocating of people. Like I said, my CMO, he was up in Seattle at Amazon. Him and his wife, she also works for the agency. They moved out here in September of 15. We have 2 guys that we moved out here from Southern California. We've got 2 business development folk that we're talking to right now that would be relocating to Lincoln for the job as well. But we always start local. Whenever we're looking for talent,
Gotcha.
we always start local, and then we epicenter out from there based on, can we find that person?
Practically, are you just connections through creative networks in your area, or like colleges, or nonprofit stuff like that, or where are you finding those people locally?
It's going to be a combination of all of that. It really depends on the role too. Okay, so we love our internship to hire program. We have 3 big universities here in Lincoln. Obviously, we have UNL, and then we have Union College, and we have Wesleyan, and we have great relationships with all of them. So we get a good amount of talent pushed to us in the form of internships from those universities.
Okay.
We're also like the young, cool agency. I mean, all of us are like tatted up and like, you know what I mean? So like we attract those people anyways right out of college, which is cool. The sales people, those are always a little bit tougher to find, you know what I mean? Because you have to find somebody that meets all the qualifications. I can't say that word without thinking of that meme of the koala. All the qualifications.
The qualifications, yeah.
But they have everything that you need to be a good salesperson, right? Not just drive, not just gift of gab, not just ability to learn, but they have everything else that's required. But they can also thrive in a younger environment. But typically, I like them to be a little bit more, my age. I'm 35, and so
gotcha.
That's been one of the toughest hires to make, is find somebody who's motivated, who can sell, who's in their like early mid 30s. I like them at that age because then they typically have a family. Mm-hmm. And if you're serious about scale, sales is everything. And if sales is everything, you have to have motivators, because you're either money motivated or you're money motivated because you're providing for a family, right? So I always take this one so I can inherit this one. So that one's been a little bit tougher to find, but those, you're looking at like Indeed, Monster, and then just like a lot of referral sources too. I mean,
okay.
We've been fortunate enough to develop some really good relationships with some pretty influential folks. So
that's a really interesting thought too there, Drew, is so sales, your sales force, maybe business development, maybe, I hate to use the word project manager, but people who are doing that kind of role, it sounds like ideally for you are the 30s range, to where they're young professionals, maybe have a family. And it sounds like you're more creatives. Those are your out of colleges or maybe internships. Yep. Is that right? Yep. And that's the formula. I can't say that that's the formula that will work for anybody who's watching this. It may work for you. It may not. It worked for us. And it's just, that's the culture we've created. That's cool. We've won awards on our culture. In 2017, we won Best Place to Work, and we won Small Business of the Year out here in the Midwest, which was super cool. And all of that came back down to like the environment that we've created for these people. We try to make it super safe and conducive to creativity. Well, that's great, man. It's a good inspiration. So a little bit of backstory on what I'm going through right now. So we just hit 2018. My wife and I are expecting our first little one who's coming in May. Yeah. So thanks, man. Yeah. So that was a big thing for me. It's like, as soon as we found out, man, something snapped in me. It was like, okay, it's time to get serious. And I'm kind of in the place that you were in when you started Evil Empire or Evil Creative, is that, I'm still managing 17 hats basically, which I say that because that's the platform that I use for all my invoicing and everything. Yeah. But I'm managing all that right now. I have some subcontractors that I hire work out to, but I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I can't spend this amount of time doing all this stuff once our little one comes along, and I can't continue to just, put everything on my shoulders. So this is huge. And I think a lot of people are in the position that I am now and that you were in a few years ago for freelance web design. And it can seem so intimidating. To be honest, looking at you, it's intimidating hearing those numbers. If you're clearing, 7 figures in the business, you have 25 people coming on board altogether, you're bringing people in, relocating, that can be really intimidating, but it's inspiring for one. And two, I think somebody like me can use it on a more practical level. So I could get to a point, and I'm kind of at that point now, where now I'm thinking, okay, what if I can find someone in their early 20s, maybe out of college or something, to handle the web development and some graphic design, that knows Divi, of course. And then what if I can, find somebody who's kind of like me, who's in their early 30s, who can help out with some of the business development and, take it one step at a time. I think that's kind of a cool approach with this as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to take it one step at a time. I mean, if I can give you any insight just based on what I've learned over the last 5 years in this industry specifically is, man, as an owner, you're always going to wear 17 hats. There's going to be days where that doubles. Even if you have a staff of 25, you as a leader, you are a servant. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned in this journey is like, everybody has this like huge aspiration, or, can't say everybody, but people want to be the CEO. People want to be, the top of the food chain. And what's interesting is, if you are that top of the food chain role, like you live to serve, man. Like my door is always open, and the stuff that I talk about with my staff, it ranges from like technical know-how all the way down to like stuff that should be going to HR, and that's cool. But like that's just the reality of it. And then you're gonna have to put out fires too. You know what I mean? So like. Right. But just going into it, knowing that, it makes it less intimidating, because then you get really good at delegating, and you get good at identifying, okay, what's a task that I should offboard and what's one that I should keep, and you start looking at things from output and efficiency standpoint, right? Like, okay, I can do this in an hour. It's going to take homie 4 hours to do it. Choose your battles almost, right?
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say to that point is that, as I'm kind of scaling my business, and as others who are in my position are trying to scale and grow a team, or like I said, even if it's just 1 or 2 people, if it's subcontractors or part-time, I know that adding more people is going to cost me more time in a lot of ways, as far as putting out fires, taking more on, having more responsibility with delegation. But I think the thing that I'm most excited about is I'm working on my time management, productivity, stuff like that. That stuff you can take day to day. But what I'm excited about is to be able to focus on what I love to do. So for me, I don't want to handle email support issues, and I don't want to be updating text on a flyer now. I was doing that a couple weeks ago. I had to update something on a flyer, and I was like, why am I doing this? I can hire this out to somebody. So I'm excited about freeing myself up to do what I do best, which is being the go-getter for this stuff, being the creative director. And it sounds like, similar to you, I really enjoy building community and building teams. I mean, I built the Divi Web Designers Facebook group. It's been incredible, and that's been a really cool experience for me to kind of see how that's, blown into something that's so cool. And that's been kind of a training thing for me unintentionally to kind of work, build an online team and stuff like that. But I say that to say, I think that's one thing to consider too, is though it can be daunting to take all this on, I imagine if you're freed up to do what you do best, it's a very rewarding feeling.
Yeah, I think it's all about how you look at it, right? Like, some people are going to think you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I think other people are going to realize, like, oh no, like, I'm offboarding this stuff that I shouldn't be doing to free up time for XYZ. You know what I mean? I think the people where people are going to get hung up is if they think offboard everything, do nothing, still collect check, have big agency. Like that's not a. I mean, I think you have to get to like 150 people for that point. And even then, like, I've got a buddy who owns an agency that's 150 people, and like even then he's still dealing with some of the same stuff that I deal with on the daily. You know,
oh, I can only imagine. Yeah.
But when you hear that, it's like, that's some perspective, right? It's like, okay, cool. Like, by myself, 25 people, 150 people, it's all relative. You just, you know, like I said, the biggest thing I learned was you're a servant, but I also learned that you are only as successful or valuable as the people you surround yourself with.
So your team knows that your goal is not to drive in a limo and come in at, you know, noon and work for a couple hours and then go on 8 vacations a year. I mean, it sounds like
right.
your team knows your true passion, and what you're doing is you're kind of leading the charge, right? You've got a hand in every part of the business, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. I do, and they do know that, and they know that I get paid last. You know, so it's not if you have a bad month, it's when you have a bad month. And, you know, I'm pretty transparent with them about what's going on with the company and our money. And, you know, there have been months where I didn't take pay. I didn't make any money to make sure that the agency is gravy and we're still saving the money we need to save. And so, having that kind of transparency with them, I believe, has allowed me to develop a heightened level of trust. And then again, that lends itself to creating a safe environment that's conducive to creativity, you know?
Okay. Wow. That's good info there. That's a good kind of mindset to have, I think, for sure. It's funny because I used to be a cabinet maker in a tour bus customizing shop here in Columbus, Ohio. And I was just a shop worker. And so I know the difference between the blue collar mindset and the white collar mindset, because we had us in the shop and then it was like them in the office, and they were like, we were at war. But I just remember all the guys in this shop, their mindset towards the owner, the boss. And even I thought, like, man, he must have it so good. He just comes in whenever he wants and he's probably making bank and he's not really doing any of the work. Now that I'm in that role, I have so much more respect for him. And I have so much more respect that I think the blue collar mindset just doesn't have, because they're unable to see the different kind of work that goes into being the head of something like that. You know, he wasn't actually making cabinets, but he was freed up to do the not more important work, but the important work that he had to do. And for me, again, that goes back to now and even in this conversation is kind of making me realize, by me sacrificing stuff, doing work that I can hire out to an entry-level position, I'm sacrificing some serious, meaningful work that could have been done years ago, I'm sure. That's a really good point, good mindset, I think.
Well, and you also, I mean, you bring up a good point with, you know, with the blue collar stuff. I mean, it's not punching a clock 8 to 5. You know, I'm very transparent with my team, and I get up at 4 every day. That's when my day starts. I have 3 kids, and so between the hours of 4 a.m. and about 6:30, I have like complete undisturbed solitude, and that's the most efficient time of my day. And my team sees me in base camp, and they see me sending stuff to clients and completing tasks, and like they see me working on stuff that early in the morning. So if there is a day where I want to dip at 2 and go pick up my kids and go see a movie or go skating or, you know, whatever else it is that I like to do to keep my head straight, it's okay to do that. I've already shown, like, hey, I've already gotten through my day's work. And that's not just a me thing. That's extended to the entire team, right? It's like we have 2 rules in our handbook, and one is the open policy, where basically you can work remote, you can come to work, you don't have to come to it. As long as your stuff's getting done, we don't care. And then the other one is on Friday, it's like mandatory. It's 3 o'clock, we're leaving early, go home, go start your week. Nice. So we try to do that kind of stuff, and then we offer stuff like unlimited vacation, which really ties back into the first one. But you know, it's lead by example, I think is the mindset that I'm trying to be subscribing to most. But then also demonstrating that there's more to life than work. Have work-life balance. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's hard for me to do it sometimes, but I do force myself to take personal time and, you know, make sure that I'm observing the healthy things in life that keep my mind on straight.
Awesome. So let me ask you a question I'm asking everyone I'm interviewing for this series.
Yeah, shoot.
When you start to scale, do you wait until you have some money saved up to be able to bring somebody on, or do you just add them in and kind of account for that, either you not taking pay for a little while or just trying to up your prices to compensate for that?
I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's going to depend on your risk adversity. I think it's going to depend on your skill sets as a designer, developer, like not even just the web world, like the services or products that you offer, are they good? And then can you sell them? Okay. If you have that model, okay, if you have something that people want and you know you can sell it, then you're just hedging your bets, right? And I'll tell you this, like, if I ever have to place a bet on a human being, I will bet on myself every single time. And I've done that with every company that I've owned, started, helped grow, or I've invested in, which at this point now there's several of them. And I will always bet on myself, before I bet on anyone else or anything else. So if you were asking me, would I hire people before I had the money? I would usually, yes, that would be the approach, but it would always come down to my plan of action too. Like, how quickly can I get in the market and sell this? How, is it a low barrier to entry product, service, or deliverable, or does it have a longer sales cycle? When we first started, our sales cycle was about 2 weeks is all. So we were moving very small websites in the SMB space, like $3,000 was like our average ticket price. Now we're doing more RFP, or we're doing more, mid-level enterprise stuff. Our sales cycle is 3 months. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty big bet to place on yourself and just sacrifice pay. I mean, if we're talking 2 weeks to a month, that's pretty easy to sell to the wife. But if I go say, hey, 3 months, no pay, that one's a little tougher to get through management. So, gotcha. Again, man, I don't have an answer. It comes down to risk adversity. What do you have to sell, and can you sell it?
That's good. No, that's a great answer, man. I think that's great because it does all depend on your situation, I'm sure. And I think any input that I could add to that I've learned with subcontracting, the limited, subcontracting hire out that I've done, is I try to make sure that they are prepared and empowered to do things quickly. So if I just hand off something, I can't expect somebody to be me, because they don't know what I know. They don't have the full framework and the years of experience that I've had doing this. So that's one thing that I'm kind of learning. And I'm doing that from a client perspective too. Like we were talking earlier a little bit about kind of finding a problem and solving it as far as a services standpoint. Well, I've really worked on that with my clients, because all of my clients have questions about how to update and edit their site. So last week during the Christmas break, I just completely redid what I call my client resources page, which has all of the main tutorials that I put out and give to my clients that will guide them through how to post a blog, some basic image optimization stuff, and all those things that are going to eliminate numerous emails and meetings and calls from me and eventually my team that people can just go to and have a resource. So I think that could probably be applied to a team perspective or a team standpoint too. I don't know what you have in place of like a guide or like a getting started thing, but it sounds like you have some resources that you send them to, right? That kind of saves you some time.
We do, and then we also have our project managers and account managers that act as mediaries to make sure that stuff is being filtered and moved through the queue appropriately. So we, it's not that we try to make it hard to get to certain people. That's not it at all. But we try to make sure that we're being very respectful of everybody's time, because that's one of the most finite resource that we have.
Right.
You can't hack or scale that. So our project managers serve to be time managers, basically.
Gotcha. Okay, so that sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
You're good.
That's a great segue into some questions I had as far as some practical and actionable things and steps that people can take with growing a business. So what kind of tools do you use for project management? I use Basecamp. You mentioned that. Yep. Do you guys use any other tools for calendars and timelines and things like that?
Yep. So I am a diehard Basecamp user. I've been there since Basecamp 1.
Are you on 2 or are you on 3? Are you in the new one?
I'm on 3.
How is that? I'm still on 2.
There's some great stuff about 3. There's some UI UX stuff that I don't understand, like how it made it through QA. And then my biggest gripe, if anyone from 37 Signals is listening, it's for you. Stop forcing your updates on me. Like, let me choose to update. And I mean, I get it. I know, it makes sense, but it's like just when you feel like you've got it dialed,
it does it automatically.
Oh, yeah, it's all different now.
Okay, I might stick with Basecamp 2 for a while. Then I've still been happy with it. So
I made the jump though. I did the jump back in the end of 2015, and I love it.
Okay.
Big fan, man. I have a Basecamp that I use to manage my personal life. My wife and I are in there, so we can see like who's getting the kids on what day. Like,
oh wow, awesome!
Love Basecamp. We also use Trello. We're an agile Scrum agency. We had to piecemeal it a little bit for the advertising side, but we use Trello for all of our cards. to make sure that things are moving through the queue the way that they need to. My project managers, I mean, they have tools for days that they're using to keep organized, and I really kind of give them the autonomy to use whatever they need. One big thing that we're in the process of transitioning off of is the Basecamp calendar, because as you know, that thing sucks. Just a giant vertical layout of time.
Yeah, I don't even use it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're in the process of jumping to something new. I have no idea what that is yet.
Do your clients, do you add them in Basecamp with the client view? So they're not obviously, so Trello is just internal.
Trello's internal, but we don't use the client side in Basecamp. I add them as a member of the team because we also assign them tasks, we assign them homework, and you have access to, you know, all the functionality on the team side versus the client side, which last time I checked was just more like the campfire side of things. And
they do. You can assign to-do lists and stuff for team or for client side, because I've been doing that. But yeah, that makes sense if they need to be more advanced. I guess it depends on who it is too. Like for me, sometimes I have team threads where I don't want the client seeing, you know, like if somebody submits a design and I need to review it, we'll do it on Basecamp and then we'll send it to the client.
Yeah, so we have a similar structure. We have our own internal Basecamp. And that's where all of that stuff happens. And then we're also diehard Slack users. So we have like a billion Slack channels that we use that we can share and pass stuff back and forth for approval there as well. So like if a new video is going to be submitted for client review, it'll go to the project manager. And 9 times out of 10, that'll happen in Slack. And then she'll be able to say yay, nay, whatever, or get this with Andrew, and then off we go. So
are you guys staying off of email pretty much then, as far as internal communication as much as possible?
We promote and evangelize no email with our clients as well.
Oh wow!
We use email in the prospecting and courting phase, and then after that, in our kickoff meeting, we basically tell them, don't email us. Like hit us in Basecamp or call us. And anytime there's a phone call, we log all the notes in Basecamp, and so the client can see it. So that way they see the running log of everything. It really helps with them realizing the efficiencies that we have in place. It's great, but we really push people no email. You know, if we have unlimited vacation, and like next week's a good example, I'm taking the wife and the kids to the Caribbean. If you send me an email for some stuff that has to get done on your site, and I'm drinking out of a coconut, like I'm not working next week. I'm not even going to have my phone with me. You know what I mean? So if it goes to Basecamp, then Cam can see when that comes across, and he can make that update for you. And so that's
a good point. And I imagine that's even more critical when you have a team of, or really of any size, but particularly your size. If you have 20, 25 people, then I can, you know, if you have messages going to certain people through email, gosh, what a nightmare having to send things back and forward. So centralized communication, that's good. Basecamp, Trello has been mentioned quite a few times. I just took a peek at Trello last year, and I don't think I gave it the time to really learn it in its full detail. So I need to look at that again. And of course, Slack, you know, that's the most popular by far for me.
Let me ask you this: have you read Scrum? Have you read that book?
No, I haven't.
The Art of Doing. Where is it? I've got it up here on my shelf somewhere.
I'm gonna jot that down right now.
The Art of Doing like twice as much in half the time. It's written by the guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, by the guy that actually developed the Scrum system. And if you read that book, and it's written in a very creative way, it's a lot of stories, and talks about his experience and how he created it. Like the book, I think, is like 200 pages, and the actual like let me teach you how to Scrum is like 6 pages. But the rest of it is stories that he tells to reinforce why he developed the system. Once you read the book and then you decide to implement, I promise you go look at Trello again, and your head's gonna explode.
Okay, all right, hold me to it, man. I've got that on my list here.
Do it up.
Give me a month or two. I'll put that on my rotation because
there'll be a quiz, man.
I'm gonna come back to you. Hold me to it because I'm really interested in it. It kind of reminds me. Did you ever read Rework by the guys from Basecamp by chance?
No, that's one that's on my list. I've not done it though.
I can't recommend that highly enough. It's probably not going to be too much information that's new to you, but it will definitely reaffirm everything that you guys have going on for sure. I'm actually thinking about rereading that to kick the year off this year. So
there you go.
Okay, so awesome. So good stuff as far as all that goes. How do you do support then? Do you have and it's a little bit different, I imagine, with your services, but from a support standpoint for questions, what if a project is done? You don't have a Basecamp thread open for them anymore. Do you have like a support link on your site that they can go to, or do you take emails for that?
We will take emails for that. I mean, we keep Basecamps open usually 30 to 60 days after a project is wrapped. It's pretty rare that we build a site and that's the end, though. The web development piece is such a nice transition into the advertising services. And so most of our clients that are web clients, I would say 90% of them move over to advertising. So their Basecamp is still open. So if something breaks or, hey, we need to add this or do this, that just happens in the updates thread in Basecamp, and off we go. And then if it's stuff that exceeds scope, right, like what an example of that would be, let's say a brochure build, local retail client, okay? And then 3 months down the road, they're like, hey, we want you guys to add these 10 SKUs, and we want to start selling online. Okay, cool. That's not obviously in the scope of services that we agreed on initially. We never talked to e-commerce. We'll price that out as a one-off project, and then they're able to yay or nay from there. But basic stuff, man, like, yeah, like we bake a couple hours into our monthly retainers to just by knowing that we're going to be doing some not heavy lifting, but just some some of the basic cleanup or tasks on the back.
Sure.
I mean, as the web guy.
So I don't want to derail us from the real message and central point here with scaling and growing a web team, but I think this does play a part in it. And we may need to do a whole nother interview for talking about systems and clients, because this is great. But do you, as your business has grown, have you kind of found your ideal client? And I guess the second part to that is, are you weeding out little clients left and right now? Or are you referring them? Or do you try to monetize that of an automotive place wants a website, but they can maybe do a couple grand at most? How do you handle those smaller clients now?
Let's come back to that one, and let's start with the first one, which was, have we carved out specific niches, right? Is that the question?
Yeah, your ideal client, I guess.
So my ideal client, we do have a couple industries that have become our biggest focus areas by accident, but we don't seek them out. The biggest thing that we look for is synergy, okay? This summer will mark my 20th year of developing websites. I started designing websites when I was 15 years old, back in the days of GeoCities and Angel Fire, okay? I've been doing this long enough that if this is a spectrum, okay, and this is want to die, and this is I love what I do, I hang out over here. And if somebody tries to drag me over here, it's not worth it.
And you're talking from client personality then, right? As far as just
I'm talking about human beings in general, man. Client personality, employees. I've had employees try to take me there too, and then I have to invite them to leave. That's just the way it works, man. But so when we're interviewing a prospect, and I say interviewing because we don't sell, we listen, and that's how we're able to build value in what we do. But that first meeting, we're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing us.
Gotcha.
We're trying to make sure, is this a good relationship? Am I going to like working with you? And we've walked away from some big projects because, God, you would not be fun to work with.
Yep.
And I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm not going to let you blow up my phone at 11:30 at night on a Saturday. I'm trying to hang out with my kids, It's just not the way it's going to work. Now, it took us a minute to get there. If you jump too soon at that one, I do think that you could risk going broke.
So when you think about, and I hate to use the term ideal client per se, but when you think about people you want to work with from a client perspective, that it really sounds like that's much more important than the size of the business, potentially, the number of employees and stuff like that. I mean, you're really just focused on people at this point, if you're turning work away or you don't need that account, then yeah. And that's kind of one thing I'm realizing with scaling a business is now I'm at that point where I'm turning clients away. I just can't take on these super small projects or vice versa, which is kind of nice to be in that position. If there's somebody where I'm like, I just don't want to work with you, it'd be a nightmare. It's kind of nice to be in that position to where you're interviewing them.
So I would say that scenario, don't do this. But the scenario, if it just budgetarily doesn't make sense, throw your team a bone. Check this out. If, let's say, your minimum threshold to get in the door is a $5,000 site, okay, brochure build, and you got somebody that comes to the table and they say, hey, we've only got $3,000. Okay, well, if you've got a dev that works for you, just set the expectation up front. I'm not going to watch you work on this at work. This is not going to hit your work machine. But freelance this for me, right? And then you take 10% as the commission or finder's fee. They get 90% to execute on the thing. But I promise you that person will be so much more connected to you, because now they're not just it's not just a relationship of I come here to do a thing and then you give me a check, right? It's like you are actually looking out for that person. This isn't a good fit for us right now, but if you're free this weekend, here's a quick way for you to make $3,000.
Okay. So you're talking about hiring out potentially to someone who you work with or who works for you.
Exactly.
Just separately, not under your business.
Just freelance. Yep.
Okay, that's good.
I've found that to be a cool way to like really develop some relationship with your staff. But yeah, if it is a synergistic thing, don't do that to them.
Now, if it's a client who's going to be a nightmare or who you know is not going to be worth it working with, you just give that to a competitor or something, or just
probably that.
Have you told people, it's just not going to work out, and you give people links or?
Yep. It depends on the situation as far as how giving will be. If it's just not a good fit on the front, we'll obviously make some recommendations. I've also had to fire clients once they make it through that screening process.
Have you ever I'm curious to get your mindset on kind of smoking out clients. Like if there's a client who's like, okay, they're not going to be fun to work with, but they may have a big budget. Do you try to give them a huge proposal, and by golly, if they go for it, then you're going to earn every buck? Or is that not even something you do?
Yeah, that's the line item that's called tolerating you. I mean, that's a real thing. You know what I mean? Like listen, again, time is the only thing you cannot hack or scale, and your time is valuable. Okay. And in certain circumstances, your time is going to be more valuable than others. Mm-hmm. We can all agree on that. So if you're going to be putting yourself through a very challenging situation to run a project effectively and efficiently, I mean, we all agree, why we're watching this right now, we all agree you should be compensated fairly for that. So, if you're hard to work with, man, I'm going to tax you for that.
I love that, a tolerating line item. That's great.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. I mean, call it what it is. But then I also make sure that expectations are super clear and defined up front. We have so many lines in our contracts, like for web design, for example. If we send over a request for a client and we need something, an approval or feedback or something, and if we don't have it within 1 week, they get charged a fee for every week that we don't have it. So that way it doesn't railroad our system,
gotcha.
Right? If they take us out of scope, we're very upfront about scope creep. So that way it's not an uncomfortable conversation for me to say, hey guys, you're taking us out of scope. We have two options. One, we'll propose it as a one-off, or two, we'll come back to it down the road. What do you want to do here?
That's great.
So then it's not the weird conversation of we'll do this one for you, but maybe not the next.
I've got one right now where a lawyer, it's been over a year and I haven't got any client, and I didn't have it in my contract to say that anything is void after a year. She paid me half up front. But that's going to be an awkward one for me. So that's a good live and learn there to get the scope creep, make sure it's taken care of. A couple questions here.
Every system that exists is because you went through something that sucked, and you build a system around how to not relive that suck. That's all it is.
A perfect segue to my next question for you, because I know you got to leave here in a few. So a couple more questions, and that leads me to ask, what are some of the main hardships or struggles that you face with scaling? You talked about having to fire people. What are some of the other maybe warnings that you would kind of warn people about, or some things that you've gone through?
You've got to be ready for anything. Honestly, when it's quiet, our leadership team, it's like something's coming. You know what I mean?
The calm before the storm.
You start to sense it. You have to be prepared for tough conversations. You have to be prepared for people to drop the ball and screw things up. It's part of the process. You have to be ready to have hard conversations.
I've heard a good quote that goes along with this, and this is just kind of a life thing, but it applies to this, is that you're in either one of three seasons in life. You're either going through a storm, you just got out of a storm, or you're getting ready to head into a storm.
That's 1,000% correct. And with scale, it's that could not be more applicable. I think with scale, if I had to sum it up in one line, it would be be ready to have hard conversations. Be ready to be uncomfortable and have hard conversations. That way we're still in one line. You're going to have to fire people, employees and clients alike. You're going to have to tell people they're scope creeping, and you're going to have to stand your ground. You're going to have clients say really shitty things to you sometimes, and you're going to have to let that roll off your shoulders, because guess what? Either right next to it or the next day, there's another project or prospective project, and you've got to be on your game.
That's such great advice, man. And that's so true to my heart, because I'm such the stereotypical nice guy who wants to please everyone. And, I want to stray from confrontation at all possible, but I know that that's like my biggest thing I need to work on. So thank you for that. That's great.
Of course, dude. And I'm the same way. Like, I'm a happy dude. I love life. I love the people that I have in it. I don't like confrontation, but it's a necessary part of being a business owner. But you don't have to be an asshole about it, right?
Sure,
like, you don't have to be a jerk to be confrontational. You can be assertive and stern and stand your ground, but not be rude. And I think that's where people get it twisted. So, for me, 2017 was our biggest year of scale. That's for sure. We grew the most in this last year. It was nutty. We had so many different scenarios that warranted a system coming out of it. Okay. I've had some people say, well, like, why don't we just have all the systems? It's like, well, you don't know all of the systems you're going to need, right? Like, that's every company ever is still doing.
And I'm sure it depends on the people you're working with and the type of projects.
Yeah. So you have to be ready to be uncomfortable and have hard conversations, but you also have to be ready to react and put systems into place to make sure that your team knows that you hear them and you don't want them to relive that suck. But then also, you're trying to make the process super efficient. So then your team has guidance. They know, what are we supposed to be doing? What is our purpose? How do we get from A to Z? And that type of layout and roadmap for them will allow them to have mastery. I believe that employees need a team, not employees, people need three things to be good at what they do. Mastery. We always have to be getting better at what we do. That's just the way we work, right? Autonomy. Get out of my way sometimes and let me do my job. And purpose. Why are we here? Where are we going? What are we doing? What's the point of evil? What's the point of that's the point of that, basically. Those three things are huge, man. If you
Drew, can you say the first one again? Because you kind of broke up there on the first one. So it was mastery, autonomy. Which were the last two?
Mastery, autonomy, and purpose.
Purpose. Gotcha.
Yep. So like mastery, a Treehouse account is pretty cheap. Buy a Treehouse account for your company or for each one of your team members and encourage them, whether it's an hour a day or an hour a week or whatever, like just get better at your craft and make it okay to do that. Autonomy, like give them your expectation. Tell them what you expect. Let them know when is this, have it be clear.
Dates, yeah.
Due dates. This is when I need it. This is what I expect it to be. But then get out of their way. Don't micromanage them. That sucks.
Awesome.
And then purpose, like, be transparent. Like when we have a great month, I tell people. When we have a shitty month, I tell people. When we redefined our core values at the end of 2017, I did very little of that. I sat in the room and I was a part of the conversation, but the entire company defined those. So they defined their own purpose, which I truly believe is why our staff loves it here.
Gotcha. Drew, this has been so awesome, man. I could talk for hours about this. I know you got to get rolling here. We're definitely going to have to do, I've got a couple other blog series in mind as far as marketing sites, particularly from the client perspective about weeding out and, processes and things like that. But this has been, I think people are going to find this extremely beneficial. You've been an inspiration for me for sure, just as I'm kind of taking that next step. And, you're kind of a good vision for me as far as like what that could be like. So thank you for your expertise with this, man. Do you have any, I know before we got on live, you were kind of telling me some things about things moving forward. Do you want to kind of talk about that real briefly? And then if you would, maybe just give like a parting thought to people who want to take their business to the next level.
For sure. So what you and I were talking about before we went live is what I'm not going to share like the name of it yet. I'll release that once we're a little bit closer to going to market, which should be the end of February. But we've basically been building out an online platform, an online course for freelancers or owners of small agencies. Think of it like Treehouse, right? Very visual, very video based, but also with like tangible goods. We're trying to simulate as much as we can the real life classroom environment or the real life like mentorship type program where my leadership team will be presenting different concepts and important pieces that somebody's going to need to know, right? So if you need help with prospecting or you need help with building pitch decks or you need help with closing or asking for the business or referrals or hiring, firing, all that, we cover all of that. And the mindset that we put ourselves in when we were developing the curriculum is, okay, we shut evil down right now and let's go somewhere that we've never been, Delaware, okay? We do no business there. How would we, in 6 months, go from 0 to 7 figures? And that plan that we put together was the curriculum. So I'm very, very excited for it. I'm very proud of it. It's we are almost done with our production schedule. Post is coming along nicely. The development, the site looks great. It's coming together nicely. So we're really excited to see where that goes.
Keep me posted, man. I'm pumped. I
sure.
definitely want to check that out, and I might be your first sign up because that sounds
cool.
awesome.
That's awesome,
and I imagine that's going to be applicable to any industry, right? Photography, design, whatever.
I mean, initially, right now, the main focus is, so you want to build a creative agency, right? But we know that there's massive opportunity to pivot and scale this thing across industries. But this specific course is 100% web design and creative advertising.
All right, man. Well, parting thought, other than signing up for your course that launches here pretty soon, do you have any parting thoughts?
Parting thought would be really make sure that every situation that you're in, you view as an opportunity to get better at your craft. And that may indirectly take place. Here's what I mean by that. If you're having a hard conversation with a client, that's not necessarily going to make you a better web designer, but it will allow your brain to be more process-driven with how you approach these types of products or projects, and that will actually allow you to become a better web designer because you're going to free up more time to really focus on your craft. So every scenario that you're in is a huge opportunity for growth. I truly believe that. That's why I've structured my day the way that I do. It's how I live my life, and it's worked all right for me.
Money. So. Drew, thank you so much for your time and expertise, man.
Great, man.
I'm looking forward to the next one for sure.
Same. Anytime.
All right, man. Cheers.
Thanks, bud.